alkalinity, we're taking that out, we're dropping the pH. The danger of the regular Claris is if we drop the pH too much, we create an acidic situation. And now we've gone from water that is going to scale to water that's going to corrode, and nobody wants that. Okay? It's better to be on the scaling side than the corrosion side. So the regular Claris, you want to make sure you have enough alkalinity to begin with. So the alkalinity that would be needed is 100 parts per million of alkalinity for a plain old Claris, okay? Which you might not necessarily know that over the phone, unless they're reordering it and they already had it before. We do recommend if you sell a Claris and someone's got one out in the field to also order the titration kit with it, especially on a new install, if it's the first time they've ever used a Claris, because the titration test kit is going to measure the alkalinity hardness for them, and in the installation kit it's got a little chart that tells them exactly what to set that head for. So I'll show you when he brings one in, but so still not really foolproof, can be very tricky. So we have our second generation of the Claris, which is called the Claris Ultra. And the Claris Ultra has some added polyphosphate in it. What that added polyphosphate does is it buffers that pH drop. So we don't have to worry. It's a little bit more foolproof, because this is a great solution for coffee. In fact, it scared me. In fact, it's not, we don't manufacture this technology. We source it from a company out of Europe, and this is the primary technology used for coffee in Europe. The water is not very different from place to place in Europe, doesn't vary to the same degree as it does in the US, so it works there. You know, they usually have enough alkalinity in their water. They're not worried about the acidity as much. So they made the Claris Ultra, I believe, for us in the US. So it's a little more foolproof. You can put it on without worrying about it, because it's not going to drop that alkalinity too much. So that does help a little. Oh, there, he's got it. Rod, do you want to talk about it? Talk about the head? You've got the head in your hand. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So then the third, well, he's bringing that up here. The third generation, which is even cooler, is called our Claris Prime. And that just comes in one size. That comes in the XXL size, which is this size. So this is the big one. Oh, and it is a Claris Prime. Yes. So this is a Claris Prime. This is also a weak acid-based cation resin on one side, but it is an anion resin on the other side. So not only are we pulling out hardness, dropping alkalinity, we are also pulling out chlorides, because chlorides are negatively charged anions. So there's a resin over there that pulls that out. So other than an RO, this is the next technology that can remove chlorides. The downside of this is it comes only in one size, so capacity can be an issue. If we don't size this properly and make sure that they're going to get the life out of it, then they're going to change it too many times a year, and at that point they've just paid for an RO. So great technology, coffee only, or very, very small steamers. Okay. But I'll let Rod talk about the head. You want to add a couple things to that?
We gassed.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay. The head assembly comes with a little device down the bottom. This is for setting the blend. There's a reason why our original unit had the set on the top. But I know this never, and I repeat, never happens in the field, right? But Shirley decided, what's that thing?
Sure.
And she starts turning. So whatever you set it on went bye-bye. So, we cheat. We have this little thing here. And we've got a little arrow in here. And you can set the blend from 0 to 6 or 60%. Think of those numbers that way. You know, it's a percentage. So let's just say we want to set it at 40. We do that, and then we put that into a box, throw it away, whatever. Now, they can't mess with it. It's set, which is
Nice.
We're trying to make things idiot-proof. That doesn't mean that there won't be issues. So I'm just saying. Now, when you put this in, the first thing you got to do is you got to flush it, like any other filter that we have. Well, we do allow you to do that on the top side. And so there is a little, you can get a little quarter. Great tool. Most everybody's got a quarter.
I don't.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll give you a quarter. I'll give you 2 bits before it is. Okay, so you can flush it. Once the air is out, that's time to close it. And you can just leave this kind of dangling. FYI, this bracket will and can, it's just like everything else that we have, quarter turn. There we go. But we make a little notch on there so you can see how far you got to go. So Billy Bob doesn't twist it off. You know what I'm saying?
Billy Bob in
Because
Texas.
he will do it. I've seen it. But you've got to push down while you do this. The other important thing is, this is the only filter you're going to hear me say this to. You can lay her down. The way it's designed in there, it's not going to trap air. Cool. That's important because, you know, this is kind of tall. Most of your espresso makers are kind of like on a cabinet thingy, right? You don't have a whole bunch of real estate underneath that cabinet. So you may not be able to stand this up high enough where you could, you gotta have that much room. If you don't have that much room, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna lay it down. And because I'm a little lazy anyway and don't want to spend the time to do 2 screws in the back of the cabinet, I'm just gonna lay it down anyway. So what do I do with this tube, that extra tube? He's real good at keeping it from rocking and rolling. See, we thought of you when we made this. Not. The other thing I will say about any Claris, whether it's this one or any other, even at 0, if the water makeup is in such a way where there's more alkalinity than hardness, it will remove all the hardness. But if the water makeup is in such a way that the hardness is greater than the alkalinity, then it's only going to remove that much hardness that's equal to the alkalinity. Why is this important? We just talked about coffee needs the calcium magnesium. Because if you take all that out, you make a very bitter, nasty cup of coffee, and next morning, I'm going next door. You lost me as a customer. Because I love my coffee. I'll have my pot every day. That's all.
Can you say that on the video? Yeah. All right. Thank you, Rod. Everyone, the great and powerful Rod Berry. Republic of Texas. So questions on the Claris. There's a ton of options here. Sizing can be tricky. We just asked you to reach out to our tech service. Have any of you talked to our tech service or utilized them before? Email, they'll get back to you same day unless it's the end of the day. Phone call, I mean, I've been here 5 years and even when there's been one guy sitting there and the other guy's at lunch or on vacation, I've waited no longer than 2 minutes. So if you're sizing coffee and espresso, just shoot us a quick email. Because if there is a Claris, we want to make sure it's sized appropriately. Because again, these are not cheap, especially the Claris Prime. It's a poor man's RO, so to speak, because the Prime can deal with those anions. But it would not be a poor man's RO if you've put it on something it can't keep up with. Because if they end up changing it then regularly and they're changing it 4 times a year, well, 4 times a year of that thing is probably $1,500 where they could have bought a small RO for $1,200. Okay, so, and we will tell you that, we'll do the math, we'll show that to you. Like if we do specify an RO and the customer says, well, I don't want RO, is there anything else you can get? we can say, well, there's these other options, but this is this and this is going to happen. Either you're going to worry about chlorides eating up your equipment. Let's say your bicarbonates are too high and such is going to happen. Or we can give them one of these and say, yeah, you can get this, but you'll have to change it 4 times a year and here's your cost. So we can help you out on all of that as well. We do that a lot. So the other option up here, we do have one of our big ROs showing up here because RO is definitely a huge option for coffee. And the reason that RO is an option for coffee is because of that TDS, because of the chlorides, things that are not removed with base filtration. Because hopefully we all understand here in this room that if we have base filtration and we have a TDS of 500 going in, a TDS of 500 going out, okay? Same with water softeners. You know, water softeners aren't end all be all that a lot of consumers think it is. So that's when RO comes in, because if we really want to meet that spec, or our chlorides are too high, or let's say we've got a ridiculous TDS of 750 and it's made up of iron and all kinds of things, we want to take it out. We want to bring in the big guns. But we don't do that unless we have to. But that there is the unit that Starbucks uses all across the globe. Yes?
You would see that maybe more where you got more than one, you got a high flow and you need a lot more volume. Will the oil handle it better?
Yeah, you will, not necessarily. So the RO is going to come in when the contaminants require RO, not necessarily flow rate. The bigger and bigger ROs like the HE2, we bring in when our flow rates are high. We have smaller ROs.
Okay.
We have smaller family that isn't necessarily that one that's shown on the picture there. We have a whole family of ROs. And I can talk about RO when we...
Flow rate that you need.
Yes.
But you're putting it in because you need to remove the stuff from the water.
Right.
Okay.
So when your contaminants...
The contaminants is what's going to drive you to RO.
Right.
And then you size it based on what flow rate you have for your application.
Right. Correct. Correct. So our ROs in the food service world are much different than the ROs on the residential side for drinking water applications. And we can dig into that here in a little bit if you guys want. But I want to make sure we jump into another... Oh, I forgot I had these slides. I could have clicked through. Apologize.
About 5 minutes left.
Okay. Do you guys want to... Yeah.
The Claris system, it's okay for chloramines as well?
Yes. So, yes. All right. Do you guys deal with chloramines? Yeah. All right. So chloramines are a big buzzword in the water world. So the chloramines, the chlorine plus ammonia, carbon will take it out. All right. You just need more contact time on the carbon to break the bond between chlorine and ammonia. Okay, so you break that bond first before you can start to break apart the chlorine. So you need more carbon to have more contact time. As long as you have carbon, that process will work. But that filter life may not be as long if chloramine is present and it's not a chloramine rated filter. So when you have an RO, it has carbon pre-filters in it. But if chloramine is the issue, you may not get full life out of that carbon pre-filter. Does that make sense? Whether that's an RO like this or that's a big old RO. You know, chloramine can really just shorten the life of plain carbon filters. If we know that there's chloramine present, you can get chloramine filters in there. But ultimately, if you're going through an RO membrane, it's going to still continue to remove it. Just chloramine and chlorine can eat away RO membranes. So that's why we take it out first. Okay. Cool? So I bet you want to run through this real quick. Okay. So this is just one of the many options of the Fresh Point. I'll let you guys start playing with this and taking it apart. But what's really cool, first thing that's new and different for EverPure as a whole, when you change these filters and you pop open this, it actually pushes the filter out. Oh, nice. Automatic shut off, and just change it. Really easy for the homeowner because this is a drinking water RO. So if you got this under your kitchen sink, you know, how are you going to get to that to change it out? And it's really easy to get this back in there, close it, put it down. Okay. This platform is available in a filtration system, 3, 4, 5 stage filtration, and it's available in a 3, 4, and 5 stage RO. That RO is available with or without a pump ahead of it. So depending on if they need a boost in pressure or not, you have that option already built into a model. And they're all separate part numbers. Super easy to install, John Guest 1/4 inch in and out. It does come with its own faucet and its own tank. So you do get a small little tank with it because it's an RO, got to have that. There's also an option with or without a built-in monitor, which is a timer. It's a little light that flashes. It's a magnetic light on the front, and that'll just tell them when they need to change their filters, which is pretty cool. But I mean, it's kind of a self-explanatory system once you've looked at it and taken it apart. Lot of different options you can go with there. If they don't need a membrane, you can still give them a 3-stage filter. They have different ratings for residential contaminants, arsenic and things like that. We have actually run this system through NSF to get those ratings. So that's why you would pick the 3, 4, or 5-stage filtration system, okay? But super cool. Yeah, it gets a lot of attention if we take it to like a little trade show or something. People are really amazed by it. But on the cover is right here is where you would put the monitor if it came with the monitor. Yeah. And you've had great success with it, you said, right?
I sold 4 to one guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he said, and he must live in the land of perfect water because he said his actually regenerated in a little over an hour.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fabulous. Everything's color-coded, you know. Now, unfortunately, and I thought of this a couple times at these shows, you've got people who are colorblind, so these little triangles on there might be a little hard for people to see, but hopefully they would get their wife to do it or something, I don't know. But, yeah, neat little thing.
How long do the cartridges typically, are those 6 months or a year replacement?
Still 6 months, but if you get the monitor, you can actually go based on usage and, you know, how long you're using it, kind of. It's still just a timer, but it's good. 6 months for filters, once a year for a membrane.
Okay.
General rule of thumb.
Membrane's typically a year,
Right,
filter's typically 6 months.
right, general rule of thumb.
Okay.
So anything else here at the end that you guys maybe want to talk about real quick or questions about? I didn't realize how fast time went on that. Time flies. Yeah, always. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna click on something real quick here. So steam in the filtration world is really, really tough. I would say, it doesn't have the slide I want, but I would say 80% of the time, across the country, if there's a combi oven or a steamer, piece of cooking equipment, RO is needed, okay? So it's just about sizing appropriately for that make and model. Each manufacturer uses water differently. Some of them have separate inlets for the cooking cycle versus the cleaning cycle, because you have separate water line for cleaning. A lot of these combi oven manufacturers, they're manufacturing these ovens to be like little self-cleaning dish machines as well. So at the end of a shift, they can run it through a cleaning cycle and clean out all the grease and the nastiness in there. So chemicals are added in the clean cycle. So you don't, if you have a separate inlet for cooking water and cleaning water, we don't treat the cleaning side. But then there's some manufacturers who have just one inlet with 2 solenoids, and then you have to treat all of it. So volume requirements become an issue there. Most of the manufacturers have gone away from that, but there are still some systems that exist in the field that have the 1 inlet, 2 solenoids.
Yeah, I've sold the clean steam before.
Yep, and the clean steam, so I'm glad you brought this up because this is a hot button issue. Clean steam is the base filtration option for steam, okay? We've been selling it forever, but you see this post filter on here. So this is a scale stick. The downside on adding, and this is new science, new research over the last 2 years probably. They have discovered that when you cook a lot of meat proteins in a steamer or a combi oven, and it interacts with phosphate, that you create this really hard to clean sludge on the inside of the machine. It's like a tacky, like have you ever gone into a house that has old cabinets? And right above the stove, the cabinets are tacky. That's from cooking oil and the heat from the steam and stuff like that. It's that tackiness that ends up building up inside that combi oven that you cannot clean out. So we don't recommend polyphosphate for ovens that are going to be cooking a lot of proteins. And you can't, I mean, how are you going to know if that place is going to cook a roast or not? You know, you don't know. So we don't recommend the full clean steam anymore as much with the scale stick on the end. So maybe specify just a dual CB5. But again, you maybe base filtration on a combi oven 15-20% of the time is that even going to work, just because those specs are so tight. So if somebody's calling you about combi oven or steamer, if you have the time, shoot text service and email. And if you guys need that number, I can give it to you. Does everybody have it? Know how to find it? Yeah, in our catalog, it's always at the bottom of each page. So, and then text service email as well. If you need that, that is service specialist at Pentair.com. And you can call me. I'm just not as fast as them. You can call Rod. He's fast. He answers his phone all the time. All right. Questions, concerns, thoughts? Good point on that scale stick, though, or the clean steam. All right. Well, hopefully you got a little out of today. Sorry we didn't get as much time on some of these as possible, but thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we'll come back.